So what if I say that we are here today in a laboratory of the planet to solve environmental problems? That's what I'm going to talk to you today about, Mauritius being one such laboratory. And there are two main reasons why we can be a laboratory of environmental solutions. First, we're a laboratory of things that should not be done to the environment, but also a laboratory, more cheerfully, of things that can be done to solve these problems. So if you thought 7.6 billion people were a lot, think about this. If you extrapolate the human population density of Mauritius to the rest of the land surface of the planet, you will get 100 billion. That is to say, we are at the extreme of the extreme. We are, in a way, a window to the future of other countries whose populations are much lower than ours today and catching up with us. So I'd like to start the first aspect of this laboratory of things that should not be done with this interesting saying: everything that should not be done to an island has been done to Mauritius, except perhaps nuclear testing. That's quite a depressing way to start it, but it's quite true. If you look at Mauritius, we were one of the last countries in the world to be colonized by humans, to be reached by humans, 1638, and we have lost our biodiversity very, very quickly, our habitats very quickly. We have caught up with all other countries, we have overtaken them, and today we have just 2% of our native habitat left. And that has, of course, created havoc on our biodiversity. Added to this situation of extensive deforestation, we've had problems of overexploitation, invasive species impact, and as a result, we have offered humanity the icon of extinction, of human-caused extinction. This used to be a dodo. Now it's a pile of bones. But that's only the tip of the iceberg. We have many other species that have gone extinct in Mauritius. 63% of the bird species have gone extinct, 44% of the snails. Fortunately, it's the only skeleton I'm going to show you today, because it's a bit depressing, I know. So I'm going to show you, thanks to colleague and scientist and painter Julian Hume, some of the other species that went extinct in a more colorful, cheerful version. This is what we lost. We lost many species: the Dutch pigeon, the red rail, the largest parrot in the world, 2 species of fruit bats already, and many other species. So we are indeed a laboratory of things that should not be done to biodiversity. And it's not just over yet. We have today the rarest species in the whole world since 75 years, and we have not been able to save it. There must be something done about it. That's the palm. Last individual, a single plant left. Now we'll take an example from Rodrigues, our little sister. The café marron, or wild coffee, a species that was thought extinct, actually, until a small schoolboy discovered it in the wild. How? It was after his teacher told him about the extinct plants of Rodrigues in one of the classes, and then he recognized one of these plants outside. And of course, it turned out to be the last individual of the plant. It was rediscovered, it was no more extinct, and conservationists jumped in and saved that species and multiplied. So that's to show to you that even a small kid can bring a big difference in conservation once you have the knowledge. Now, the other aspect that Mauritius is very much pioneering in the world and giving hope to other places is about ecosystem conservation. We have talked about species conservation so far, but species interact with each other. So they need the whole ecosystem to be able to survive. And we here in Mauritius have been pioneering this work. When you look at this forest in the national park, it looks all right. But if you look underneath, you have a maze of alien species. All these stems that you see here in front of you are strawberry guava. We call it Chinese guava in Mauritius. And these are weeds that are overwhelming the forest and killing and stifling the forest. So what we do in the national park, and some number of private landowners as well, We can remove these weeds. Of course, I'm sorry, it looks like a war zone when you remove the weeds because it's so invaded. It looks like that at the beginning. It doesn't look very good. But after a couple of decades, it looks like this. And this is where all our research that we have conducted in comparison between the invaded forest and non-invaded forest show that this is a massively positive action to take for saving biodiversity. You save a large number of species. All birds, reptiles, plants, orchids, ferns that we have studied so far have recovered dramatically thanks to that one action of controlling alien species. And alien species is a major problem worldwide in many other countries, and people are learning from our experience to know what to do with them. So now, as a bonus, we got that little plant as well coming up. I like it very much because it's heart-shaped. It's a small orchid. Has not been seen since more than 2 centuries. 1769 was the last time it was ever seen in Mauritius. People thought it has disappeared. Even some people thought at some point it never existed. But then it reappeared by the hundreds. Within these areas, we have been rid of alien plants. So here's another example of hope. Even a plant that we thought was already gone, we are able to take it back from the dead by restoring its environment, removing the alien weeds. Now, I'll talk about ecological function. No matter how much you will remove guava, no matter how much you will remove rats, monkeys, and all these invasive species that destroying our wildlife, you will not bring back the dodo, you will not bring back the tortoises. So these species are gone forever. So we here in Mauritius have devised a new approach, very much pioneering in the world, called using the analog species to replace ecological function, lost ecological function. Because these large species had an ecological function. They were, for example, eating plants, which are dominant, and therefore preventing other species of plants from being overwhelmed by these dominant native plants. Preventing exclusion, we call it. But they were also eating fruits and disseminating the seeds. And this allows plants to regenerate in the wild, because if the seed falls to the foot of the mother tree, it's not going to grow. It's not going to survive very long. And the other thing as well, of course, the tortoise will add manure and fertilize the soil. And all these kind of functions will actually very much help our biodiversity. How do we restore this function if the species has gone extinct? We have looked for the most gracious replacement we can find to our 4 species of tortoises that we have lost in Mauritius and Rodrigues, and we found this guy from Aldabra, which has a nice pedigree of conservation because it's a species that was already by Charles Darwin recommended to be taken to Mauritius as one of the first examples of translocation for conservation purposes, because Charles Darwin, found out that tortoises in the southwest Indian Ocean islands were disappearing one after the other through overexploitation. They were the tin food of the 17th, 19th century. They keep fresh for months at sea. So we brought them, he recommended to bring back this animal to Mauritius, and now we are giving this tortoise a second conservation role, which is to replace the extinct Mauritian tortoises. And here's an example of what he's doing, eating the fruit of a pandanus, a screw pine, and later on disseminating that seeds. Right. I'm probably going to suggest to you to think about it. There are thousands of little actions that you can do to actually make things better, reduce the problem side of the equation, and increase the solution side of the equation, and help the environment, help biodiversity. So saving electricity is one of them, because you pollute less. Eating healthy food is good for you. You have less pesticide, but it's also good for the environment. The choices that you make, you vote for the product that you buy, and think about what is the impact of that decision that you're taking on the environment. Is it destroying biodiversity? Can I make a better choice? So, changing subject slightly, I know people talk about, well, we can talk, talk with the dead sometimes. But yeah, it's quite true. The dead can talk to us. Here is one such dead bird telling us plastic kills. So with this, I'd like to encourage you to think that you're not just passengers in this laboratory of hope, but you're also actors in it.